has a monopoly on the truth. Our version of our own truths are based on our own lived experiences. In this space, we welcome different perspectives to learn, unlearn, and enlighten. Welcome to The Lantern. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Lantern podcast. We have officially reached episode 21, which I'm really excited about. I have actually stumbled upon research that shows that most podcasts don't make it past episode 21. So the Lantern podcast must be doing something right. Thank you to everybody who's listened to the podcast. I think we're almost 2 years old, but it's been an amazing journey. With that intro said, I'm joined by Michigan Buckley, who is a mental health and wellness ambassador at Seize the Light and the founder of GGG, which is a running club. Michigan, welcome to the Lantern podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on.
So, Michigan, I'm sure you know from previous episodes, I usually let the guests introduce themselves because I think it's just nice for people to get to know you from your own point of view other than a researched point of view. So, how do you want to introduce yourself and what do you want people to know about you?
So I think kind of the biggest thing about me is my run club really and being a runner. So I kind of started Go because I wanted women to feel safe in a sporting environment. So those that maybe didn't want to work out alone, I kind of wanted to create a community where we could all come together and not necessarily just sport, but also kind of doing fun social events as well. So that's kind of my reasoning behind it, is creating that sense of community for women of all abilities.
Okay. And how about telling us a little bit more about yourself? So, not really about the Run Club, GGG, which we'll get more into, but how about who exactly is Michigan Buckley outside of being the founder and mental health ambassador?
So outside, like I said, it's always easy to fall back into the running because I feel like that can be my life. But so I have a degree in psychology and a master's in sports psychology. So that's kind of my background, and I love anything kind of psychological based, whether it be readings or films or programs, and also just alongside the running, quite sporty in other aspects. So I enjoy playing netball. I kind of enjoy going to watch sporting events as well, and love to socialise, love to meet new people, love travelling, love going on holiday as we all do. This year's been a big year of travel for me, so yeah, really looking forward to. I've got a few more holidays planned for the year, and yeah, that's kind of a bit about me, really.
So, I mean, based on the bio that you shared, it seems like you've always been quite a sporty girl. Maybe unpack for us, like, why has that always been important to you? Or why do you think you've leaned towards physical activity?
So I think it's always been the benefits of how I've felt from it. So from a young age, I started, like, netball was my favourite sport, and that's where I kind of started playing. Played to quite a high level. Met loads of amazing other girls my kind of age, and I think for me it's that being on a team. I feel like I'm quite a good team player. I love being around and supporting other people. And so from a young age, I think it was more kind of being around other people and socializing. But the older that I've got, I think sport for me is just how it makes you feel mentally. Not always physically, but but the mental side of it, kind of taking care of yourself. And when times are tough, I think just being able to, whether even if it just be a walk outside or taking some time to work on your breathing, I think it's really, really important. And I think that's why I enjoy it so much.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to delve a little deeper into this because I've actually seen research from UK Sports, Women's Sport, I think it's called. It's an organization that's heavily invested in helping young girls transition into more physical activity because I think the obesity rate in the UK for young girls is quite high. And, from some of the studies that I've seen that have been highlighted, it's been a perception that a lot of young girls have around physical activity, maybe not having the confidence to actually engage in these sports. You don't seem to have had that kind of problem. You just seem to have jumped into a plethora of these physical activities and obviously are good at them. So, how did you develop that confidence in sport, in contrast to maybe younger girls who don't feel as confident? And what do you think maybe some of the reasons are behind younger girls in the UK not feeling as confident to engage in physical activity or sport?
Yes, I think, I mean, it may seem now that I'm confident, but it has taken a while. It's been a journey. So when I first started kind of working out, exercising, I found it very hard. I think around the time of being late teens, early 20s. So I'd just gone to university, I joined the netball team. But I think around the college to university transition age, for a lot of young women, it's extremely tough just because, one, I think your body goes through so many changes, a lot more than men. Physically, you're growing into a woman. So sometimes I think for women, they are very self-conscious. Like I myself, I didn't really want to be wearing like tight clothing, didn't really want to be necessarily working out around men as well. But I think it comes with age, and that was the kind of the reason with Go Go Glow again that I was, well, one, making it female only, but also to help women kind of overcome those barriers and feel more confident because, like I said, that is how I felt at the start. So I think because I've kind of gone through it and come out the other end, my aim is to help women feel the same way because it's not easy at all. And there are days where, you don't necessarily feel good or feel confident, but I think from being around others, not necessarily doing everything by yourself, it really does help.
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting one that you mentioned there regarding the Run Club and you wanting to create that welcoming space for young girls. Do you maybe have an insight into maybe the other reasons why women-only spaces in sport are quite important?
Yeah, so besides kind of confidence levels and self-esteem, I think also in this kind of society we're living in, unfortunately, safety is a big thing. So for women, even myself, when I've been kind of out running alone, um, you kind of have to always have your wits about you. I think even in the daytime, planning your routes, not necessarily what you wear, but you shouldn't have to think about it. But I think a lot of women do just because women, there's kind of lots of statistics and recent studies about how many women have been harassed whilst working out, which is really sad to hear. So again, from providing the space, it was kind of, I think safety is a big aspect of it. Women have actually kind of fed back that they feel safe when we're running together. We run in parks in the daytime, so it's always where there's lots of people around. And then when we do our midweek runs, I always make sure it's kind of in central London. So again, there's always people around. So yeah, I think safety is as sad as it is something we have to be aware of as women when when working out and exercising.
I think it's an interesting point that you raise, and obviously one that is very worth highlighting around the safety of women, because we shouldn't only be confined to indoor workout spaces, but unfortunately, women even get harassed in indoor working spaces, and it's for quite trivial things like just what they're wearing, as you said. Like it was just the idea of you don't want people looking at you. But I mean, the average workout clothes and how they're designed, they are designed in such a way that is quite impossible for you not to be looked at. Um, I wonder if you had any views about the evolving trends that we're currently seeing now with I would say the Gen X girls who are more into baggy clothes and they don't necessarily dress for the male gaze. I'm quite interested to get your view on that as a sporting girly. Has that changed sort of how you put together your outfits, or have you just sort of overcome the mindset of worrying about how you look when you show up for your runs?
I think that is a really good question because I've been literally speaking to some of my run club girls the other day, and we're often talking about different clubs and not comparing, but it's so interesting to see what different running clubs bring, and especially the mixed ones. But we've even said, I think, where mine is women only, I personally, I mean, I really don't care what I look like. I'm there to run, there to see the girls catch up, yap, what burn some calories. But I think the sad thing is for a lot of women the similar age to me that are going to the mixed clubs, it does seem that some of them are there to impress or, maybe not specifically for the sport itself, which is a shame. But like you mentioned before as well, I think the sports clothing available for women is it seems to be, when I was younger and kind of playing netball and running, it was always like leggings, long sleeve top, or in the summer maybe a short sleeve top. But now it seems that it's like sports bra and almost like a tiny short is kind of, I mean, that's not me. But
Yeah,
it is, I mean, don't get me wrong, the girls they do look good, they've got great bodies, but I'm
yeah,
just,
yeah.
I don't know,
I,
it's
ju-
a tough one.
I just laugh at you're trying to describe it in the most appropriate way. So that's why I was laughing because it's like, how do you describe something like that in the most
No,
appropriate way?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I think the clothing one is quite interesting. And I think the reason why I wanted to highlight it is that even in the yoga space, we've gone through the same sort of cultural shift where obviously yoga went through a phase where it was very westernized, and with that western influence came, you know, the apparel like of Lululemon, for example, where it was like cuts that were only for a specific size, but then over and above also being for a specific size, it was tight. There was nothing that sort of leaned towards the authentic sort of looks that you would find in, you know, Eastern culture. So this clothing topic, like, it's one that I never was mindful of, and not realizing that perhaps I myself was also given into the male gaze, but not. It's just like it just sort of happened, right? It's not something that I consciously thought of because it's, as you say, it's just what's available on display. You're not going to be thinking about it quite deeply and thinking to yourself, oh, I won't lean towards a sports bra and this set because then I'm going to be objectified. You're just thinking to yourself, like, these are the clothes that are available. So these are the clothes that I'll buy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And one thing I will say as well, which I've been trying to kind of drill into the girls, is that, I mean, I think everybody likes designer clothes, and for me myself, I do love Nike as a sporting brand. Like, I've always worn it, especially shoes. I think I'll invest a lot in shoes because it's important. But I think a lot of young women do compare themselves in terms of they want the flashiest brands, but it's expensive. It is so
Yeah.
expensive, and like you said, there's Nike, there's Lululemon, there's so many brands, Gymshark, big one, competing, and I often say to the girls, whether it be their trainers or their outfits, like, I mean, half the time I might wear the nice pair of shoes, but I'm wearing Primark because it does the job. And because I'm wearing it so much, it's like you can replace it whenever. Um, but I think, yeah, the whole reason why I love running and the running community is that running is it's free to an extent. You can turn up, you can show up. So it kind of makes it inclusive for most. And I say that, you don't have to have the most expensive shoes or gear. You can still show up and have a good time. So I think that's important to highlight because I think that some people can be put off by the fact they may not be able to afford the branded the branded things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, I hadn't actually thought about inclusivity from a pricing lens because it is one of those where some people may think, even in order to participate within a particular physical activity, they need to look a certain way. So if they cannot afford the aesthetic, they won't even participate. But that's not even taking into consideration the community you may find, or, you know, the mental, the physical, the mental health benefits, the physical health benefits, if you're too focused on like how you look, the aesthetics and the materialism. But I think the history of sport has been embedded with this. I mean, I think that it did happen during westernization, where the culture sort of leaned towards more how do you look versus what is it going to do for you. Because if you look at even high end sports like tennis is quite an expensive sport, right? It's not an entry level sport that you can just do. You need to have a certain amount of money, obviously, because you need to pay for the court, you need to pay for the racket, you need your balls. Whereas with running, it's just let's all meet together and hit the ground running. But I think people still find a way to exclude people because one running club will say, oh, we're all wearing Nike shoes. But now, if I don't have Nike shoes, and I feel like I cannot be a part of that running club. So I think inclusivity is a huge point when we're talking about sport and activities that are so beneficial for mental and physical health.
Yeah. And just going back as well to, I completely agree with you, the inclusivity part. Again, it's something that a big value of Go Go Glow that I try to promote because with like I'm all for the mixed clubs, especially myself who's kind of been running for a while and I have been joining up once a week. I do run with another run club to kind of push myself because, as you know, the men are competitive, they are fast. So
Yeah.
that's always fun. I do that on a Wednesday. But in terms of, it's so interesting to see across social media. I'm kind of always looking at other run clubs for advice and tips and to learn and grow. And the amount of mixed clubs, especially that promote that they're inclusive, and then you see people might be doing like a day in the life, or I joined this run club on, like, say, a TikTok video, And the amount of, it is mainly women, I have to say, that are left behind, which really
Mm.
shocks me, and I do find it quite hard watches sometimes, because I cannot imagine myself showing up to, and it could be any sporting activity, but I think running in particular, where you've kind of said that the community is inclusive, and then you've got people, even say their fastest pace groups, they've left somebody behind. And if they, with clubs, they can do what they want, but I think you can't be promoting inclusivity and leaving people behind. So that's one thing I think with Go Go Glow. I always say we are for women of all abilities. We've got some of the girls who I've recently made some of the regular girls ambassadors, and they kind of will take the lead in terms of they'll be my pacers at the front. And we almost, when it's been big groups, we kind of have two or three groups. So somebody's always with someone, and I'll always stay at the back because, one, I just love chatting. So I'm normally with the slower girls or the newer girls. So it's quite nice
Yeah.
just to actually get to talk to people. And so many of the new girls have kind of said, like, thank you so much. It's so nice not to be left behind. But
Yeah.
yeah, I personally could not imagine leaving somebody behind, whether they are, even if they have to stop 100 times, like the fact that they've even come is an achievement. So yeah.
I mean, you've said so much there, and I think it's one of those things that you're right does need to be highlighted because as anybody building community, yes, we will view these communities in terms of inclusiveness based on our own subjective opinion of what inclusiveness means to us. Because I find, for example, like for you, the pace aspect is quite a sensitive aspect. So maybe there's a story around pace. Maybe you were left behind at some point. I don't know. Or maybe it's something that you're cognizant of or you've seen. And that's why you're making it your mission that your run club will not do that. But I think for people that maybe these clubs and communities are built in favor of, they may never see the problem. And I think that's the main issue. And if we extrapolate that as we're talking about school, just PE, the standard is set by an apparent, average fitness level, but based on whose fitness level is that, right? Because we cannot be benchmarking people on an average that we're not sure how we came to the conclusion that that is an indicator of fitness. And these, like, fitness is such an integral part of one's life that if you don't develop a habit of fitness in your foundational years, I think it's quite difficult to pick up in your adult years. So I don't know if you had any views about maybe people who haven't had any exposure to fitness at a foundational level have felt excluded. How do they show up in these communities as more grown kids or adults?
It's really interesting that you said that again, because I feel like a lot of the women that have kind of been coming to Go Go Glow have been saying, I wasn't sporty at school, I wasn't into sport, didn't play any sport. And I think people always feel like if they haven't done a sport as a child, or maybe, because I think running's in so many sports, so it is kind of key, not necessarily to be good at running, but knowing how to run and being confident at running somewhat. So it's interesting that these women have said that, and then the amount of women, or the amount of people that have turned to running now,
Yeah,
it's amazing. Like, that's why I will support any run. That, I mean, it's very competitive. There's so many run clubs in London, but I'm all for it. I think it's amazing that people, whether they're sporty or not, want to get into such a, like, fun and free activity. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I try and promote to as many people as possible. I always have people say, even my best friend that I live with, she says I can't run. And when people say that to me, or I often get messages on Go Go Glow, and
yeah,
people say, I would love to come, but I can't run more than 1K or 2K.
yeah,
And I always say, everybody can, everybody can run,
yeah.
and there's no right or wrong. I think it goes back to, like you mentioned, about the pacing. Interestingly enough, I haven't actually been left behind, so I don't know why I feel so passionately about it. But I think because I've seen
Yeah,
just so many, and for me it's women as well that have been, I think creating that space where women don't feel that way is important.
yeah. But I think it's just also the standard maybe of physical activity, right? Because what we're exposed to at PE level is kind of what you think is available to you as an adult. So I don't know about your selection of choices at high school, but for me, for example, we didn't have the option of doing yoga or something less rigorous that perhaps that is a catalyst to you becoming physically fit. But if all the options are these like aggressive physical activity or like touch rugby and tennis, and maybe you're not good at team sports, maybe you're better at individual sports, so it takes a bit of resilience and discovery to figure out what works for you. But I think, unfortunately, we're in a society and culture that's quick to cancel you for not being good enough at one thing. And then you yourself, I mean, if you're not resilient enough to think, okay, well, I'm not really good at team sports, so let me try individual sports, or like I'm good at individual sports, let me try team sport, you may just lose an opportunity to even get exposure and develop that physical skill set.
Yeah, and just even thinking back like to school now, I kind of think I was fortunate enough that the sports, I mean, the school I went to did offer a lot of sports, and so that was great for me. But the sports that I found that I was good at were kind of promoted in big sports in the school. But just even having like thinking about it now, like you mentioned, things like yoga, even I did do dance as a child, so have a bit of a dance background. But even dance clubs, think even things like Zumba, which is
Yeah.
fun. Like
Yeah.
there's so many activities,
Yeah.
Pilates. I know Pilates has become huge now, which is great. But for people that would have maybe been better at activities like that, it does seem very much it was team sports, football, basketball, netball, hockey. It was, yeah. So it's interesting to think how many of how many people would have been like experts in that field now
Yeah.
if they had been given the opportunity. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's something I think about a lot, because obviously we're in the physical activity space, and when we've even studied schools, it's the question that I bring up is like, why don't you offer yoga as a sport? And some people will think it's not worth to offer it as a sport, but it is, because it's a way of moving your body. It's low impact. It's highly accessible if it's taught in the right way with the right props. But I think this feeds into our perception as people as to what exactly is physical activity. And it's harder to convince people that, the slow, gradual burn is as effective as like a fast paced run. And, our perception of fitness just generally, like this was me, like probably like over a decade ago, even my own perception of fitness, like heavy weights and running. And, I would have never thought that, oh, like yoga can actually be quite rigorous if done in the right way. And, exploring your body and knowing what's best for you. But because we have this standardization at an academic level in schools, you don't have exploration past that. I don't know anybody who will randomly think, oh yeah, I might be good at Tai Chi. If you don't even have exposure to Tai Chi, you're not even you're gonna know. So before I transition to the next question, I am curious to know, other than running and netball, what other physical activity or any activity that stimulates your mental health do you enjoy?
Um, so those two, I mean, I love going to the gym. So with the gym, I actually find out of the three that that's the one where I feel like I come away and I feel the best
Hmm.
because I feel like the gym is being so flexible, and at the gym there's classes. You can do a dance, you can do spin. It's different every time you go, and I just feel like you can work out at your own pace. There's no
Yeah.
pressure. I go by myself, so I kind of get in the zone, put my music in, and just tune out. Whereas with netball, again, like you mentioned, it's very fast paced. I play at quite a competitive level. So for me, it's like I am competitive. So it's like for me, I'm ahead in the game. I do want to win at the end of the day. And then with running now being one, because I'm into like my long runs, half marathons, and being in the community of running, it's constant. And even I was having a chat with some of the mixed club I run with on a Wednesday. We were kind of saying it hasn't taken away the fun of running, but it just feels like it's PB this, PB that.
Yeah.
Are you doing this race? Are you doing that race? And whilst I mean it has its toll on the body physically and mentally, you feel great after a run. But I just feel like at the moment we're very much could just be the running community I'm in, but there's quite a lot of us, male and and women, that are kind of all it's just all we talk about is speed, time, pace, and it's different because I don't. It's not as much like that in my go 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 community, which I don't want it to be at all. Sometimes it can be
Mm.
because there's crossovers. There's girls that go to both, but I think for the gym, it just seems it's very relaxed for me. I go, no one's pressuring me to do anything, music in, enjoy, come home. I feel great. So I think it's good to have the mix. And I do, like I mentioned before, I do have a dance, not for years now, but I did dance for 10 years as a child. So I've always liked dancing and kind of occasionally go to like a Zumba class because they're fun. You can go with friends, have a good time. There's no pressure. So I think it's important to trial different things. And I think we've spoken before about how important I think yoga and Pilates. I've not yet tried yoga. I've done a couple of times, but for me, and kind of stretching your body, it feels great. And I think any athlete, any person that does, whether it be a team's, like I wish kind of that was yoga available when I played netball as a teenager because I was playing like 4 times a week. And I think just to have that breathing space. And as a runner, I would love for Go Go Glow to have, I don't know, like monthly or bi-monthly yoga sessions because I just think everyone needs to breathe sometimes.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned trying to incorporate that as part of your physical activity, because I was going to ask the question now around maybe if you could share your own understanding of the difference between mental health and physical health, because we support uh, other running groups, and interestingly, I think there's a conflation that when you're taking care of your physical health, automatically your mental health is taken care of. But based on what you've explained, it seems like you've understood that when I'm doing this physical activity, it's high pressure, I'm enjoying, I'm competitive. But when I want to relax and restore and maybe connect with myself, I'm doing something else. But that's just based on my analysis. But I will hear from you.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I think it's so important to be aware of mental health when you are exercising because, as we know, I think mentally, if one is having a bad day, I know for me, if I'm feeling a bit down or even if I'm feeling tired, whether it be a walk outside, whether it be any form of moving my body, I'll always feel better after. But I think you you can't you have to listen to your body at the end of the day. Like, there's no point going for a long run where you've already kind of said at the beginning. Sometimes you have to push yourself a bit, as you do with everything in life. But I think if you don't feel mentally ready to take part in an activity and then you push yourself to, it's only going to put you off more. Like with running, I always say it's a bit of a love hate, a bit like Marmite, because I go through such phases where, like, this year's been a great year. I did my first half marathon in April and I trained so hard for it, so I feel like I came away feeling accomplished. But then for 5 6 weeks after that, I didn't run. Apart from run club, I didn't run, and I used to run maybe 3 4 times a week because I was so, well, physically but mentally as well, exhausted. I don't think people, if you're not necessarily into running, the kind of commitment and the training, the diet, the sleep, like, it's a lot that goes into it.
Mm,
So I think being aware of it and being open, speaking about it, asking people for advice. I've done people that have done like marathons, ultra marathons. I'm always kind of saying, how do I feel my body? What can I do? Um, and rest is very important. It
yeah.
sounds easy to say, but I'm somebody that does find resting quite hard. Um, so again, this is where I think things like the yoga and the Pilates would come in because it's not resting, you're still moving your body, but I think mentally it's good. It's really good.
I love the fact that you mentioned, some people are very committed, let me say, to their running routine where they will know like what time to sleep, when to eat, etc., etc. But do you think that at some point it can become a little bit obsessive and then maybe take away from the actual point of what the activity is supposed to do for you, maybe physically and mentally?
I do. I mean, I think with the half training for a half marathon or a marathon especially, I mean, you forget when you're, for somebody that's not in that running community, that it's it's so big and it's not normal. Like what you're training to do is not normal. And I think it's only, can't remember the exact percentage of how many people take part in a half marathon or a full marathon, but it's very small. So yes, it's great to you can be like, oh, I'm in that percentage, amazing. But it's also like what you put your body through is a lot. Physically and mentally, as I mentioned, I think they're both as important as each other. With like the physical side, you're always told to cool, warm up, cool down, stretch, eat well, sleep well, hydrate, especially in the heat. I think this last few months, hydration has been, I don't think people, I've always been well at hydrating, but I don't think a lot of people realize how much, water you need to be drinking and things like electrolytes helping as well. Um, but I just don't think as many people realize how to look after themselves or their mental health as well.
But it almost feels like with these extreme cases, it's like putting your body under that amount of strain is a form of self punishment. Like you enjoying that extreme amount of pain until, because these accounts that I've read is where people feel like you just go numb, so you don't feel anything. And obviously, as someone in mindfulness, I can't necessarily understand what that disconnection may feel like, because I think when people mention, I haven't run past like a certain amount of kilometers, probably 15, I would say is probably the most back in my like running days. But then common sense prevailed and I stopped doing it. Um, I would say, like, when you reach that point where you can't feel your body, on the like psychology side of things, they'll say that's when your mind disconnects from your body, because the only way you're going to be able to keep going is by you actually no longer sending the receptors and saying to yourself, I'm in so much pain, I can't. You actually have to suppress. So I wonder what's your view on that? Because that's something that I came across and I found that interesting, because I used to do that too. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize, and like that suppression, it starts there. And that's when it becomes a bit self punishing.
Yeah, I mean, even you saying that now is kind of making me reflect because I feel like, again, from doing half marathons, where it is such a long distance to be running, you train for certain distances, and a lot of us do use energy gels and things to kind of, when your body is getting tired. But now you're saying it, I'm just like, no, kind of is punishment because really, when you get to, we're kind of told, or, kind of coached that when your body's almost around, say, halfway into a half marathon, you should take a gel. And for me, I normally take it just before I can feel myself getting like to that point of exhaustion. So you're at the end of the day as a runner, we always say you're never completely pain free. There's always like some sort
Mm,
of niggle, but with the half marathon, you do push through it. And again, it's a mind game because we always say past a certain distance, it's you might be in pain, but it's the mind. Um, so yeah, is it punishment? I mean, I would
I
never go
was
so much. I would never go
okay.
so much as to
Yeah,
complete.
yeah,
But I know people would though. That's the thing. And
yeah.
like I said to you, after doing my half marathon, I think mentally it was mentally and physically had such a toll on me that I had that break, recharged, kind of refreshed, and then I came back and now I'm like in such a good place with running again. I've got two
But
halves coming up, so
but I wonder, do you think it becomes addictive, like that cycle?
100%. Like that was me literally with the half. As soon as I finished that half marathon in April, I said I will not do this distance again. A month later, I signed up for the big half. I also signed up for the London Marathon, but thankfully did not get in. And then, so I'm doing now two half marathons this year, and I've got two booked for next year. And it's just like everyone I know around me is the same. Like people will say, I've known people that've done the London Marathon this year, which is obviously honestly incredible. And I still don't know if I actually want to do it,
Yeah.
but they've said I'll never run it again. Like it's one of the hardest things. It's crazy. But then they've applied for it again, and I'm just like, do you forget the pain you go through? Or I don't know. I mean, that the London Marathon is an achievement. Any marathon or
Yeah.
half marathon is an achievement in itself. But the marathon, especially, I think the pressure you put on your body and self, is it worth it?
I mean, I have to ask the follow-up question, and I mean, you don't feel pressure to answer anything I'm asking now. You can mull over the answers, because I understand it's probably gone a little deeper than the peripheral peripheral discussion about running, but it just really got me thinking. And I wonder if is some of it maybe linked to ego.
But with as in like doing all these big races.
Yeah, the achievements, the accolades, the medals, and then like maybe like wanting to go and do it again. Is it maybe linked to ego?
I mean, it could be. I mean, I personally don't see it as that, but I'm sure a lot of people do. But it doesn't help that for a lot of people, even just speaking to the girls in my community, we do races, we do fun like 5 or 10K races. You get a medal. The girls, everybody loves a medal these days. I'm like, people. I know people that kind of will do a race for a medal, and I'm like, that is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that is crazy to me. But they're not necessarily there for the run, but they think it's you know great to get the medal. But no, I do think for some people maybe it is an ego thing. It's interesting.
Yeah. That's what I say. Like, I just thought, like, let me put it out because I never know who's listening. And as I say, these are articles and thoughts that I even came across and I found quite interesting because I've never really looked at running from a different lens other than when I was also a runner myself. So coming back after all this
Yeah.
time and then asking these reflective questions of, wow, like, why are you self-punishing? Like that's got to be linked to something deeper. Like, you know, because there are other forms of activity. Although like I definitely respect it. Like I do think you have to have a certain amount of mental resilience. And I don't want to take away from that because I don't want any runner listening to now like switch off the podcast and be like they hate running. No, I think it's absolutely admirable. Like I know the level of discipline around diet and sleeping. Like it's you're a full-time athlete. That is like a lot of work and a lot of discipline. So I respect it for that. But I do still think there's a lot of research that needs to be done if you're in a perpetual cycle, I think, of self-punishing. Like is that necessarily healthy, and does that really alleviate your mental health or contribute towards maybe its decline? Because this is where it's a good place for me to mention that there are some people who are runners who have like suffered heart attacks, they've unalived themselves. So I think this is where these kind of questions and deep analysis has come from, because people have, you know, historically conflated mental health and physical health. But then in these kind of articles coming out, then you wouldn't really expect, like, why would a runner, somebody who seemed to be in a very good place, in great physical shape, then we assume great mental space, yet is capable of then, you know, or being susceptible to a heart attack.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that again as well, because I feel like with so many of the big marathons, half marathons, you often hear, I feel like at least, I don't know if there was any at the London Marathon this year, but that somebody's had a heart attack or even died. And you always think, oh, well, runners are fit. But I think, well, one, there's people running, even up until their 90s, you see some of these races, which is great. I mean, they're physically, or they look physically fit, they feel physically fit,
Mm,
but you just never know of underlying conditions. And until you push your body sometimes to that extent, you wouldn't know, because the I just think the pressure that running has on the body, especially for these big races, is and that's why it's like you could be so careful, you could follow a diet, you could train well, but at the end of the day, you just it's a tough one.
yeah.
You never know. You
I
enjoy it and do what you can to look after yourself.
Michigan, I think this is the intersection that you can explore in your role as an ambassador. I think because it
Yeah,
will be based on your lived experience, your training. You know, I think it's a good one, and people to learn from you in that regard. I think it will be quite important.
yeah, definitely.
Um, so I'm curious to know about what shifts have you found in maybe some girls who joined your community. And when we talk about shifts, this can be broad because obviously there's the mental health benefits, there's the physical health benefits. But what are some of the shifts that you've seen in people prior to joining your running community and after?
I think for me, I think confidence has been one of the biggest, and that was kind of the initial goal. So whether it be even just women, not necessarily that are not confident in running, but just in life, making friends or speaking to other people, introverted people. And I think it's important to kind of say that I have not just the running side, but building the community for just women to have that safe space. So I have been kind of doing other events or collaborations, whether it be walks. We've done picnics. With the weather being so nice, we've done a lot of outdoor things, but picnics, brunches, coffee and cake meetups. So it kind of, for those that maybe want to be a part of a community but didn't feel they wanted to run, I feel like Go 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 has really kind of helped people become more confident. And when you sometimes hear feedback, I'm always like asking girls what they want to see more of, or what have they found has been good about Go Go Go, and they say that, you know, their self-esteem and confidence has improved. They've made friends. Some of them have like met up beyond, you know, not just running. You see them like go for coffees by themselves, and you're like, no, that's really nice to see. So yeah, I think confidence is probably the biggest one for me.
Yeah. I think for you, confidence seems to have been quite a thread through all the conversations that we've explored in this wider conversation. Um, so I'm curious to unpack then this confidence element a little bit more, because I remember at the beginning of the podcast you sort of mentioned that you were not as confident and now you're fully confident. Do you attribute that to your physical running journey, or was it more internal work? Like, what was the catalyst that led to you becoming more confident?
So I probably have to say it's not really running related, but it's something that I know we've definitely spoken about it before. But I think what the point I realised where I felt more, I wouldn't say I'm 100% confident, but try to be, is when after I left university, when I went to Australia for 2 years. Um, so I kind of left family, left friends behind. I always knew I wanted to travel, and it was a place that I thought looked amazing. I loved the sun, loved the sea. Um, I couldn't have gone any further away. Didn't know anybody there, and even my mum was like, for somebody that's always quite, I would say my friends would describe me as like bubbly and quite loud, but also I can be very introverted, especially when I meet new people.
Yeah.
So I think when I told my mum, she was like, "What?"
She's like, "Are you
She
sure?"
was like, "Are you?" Yeah, she was like, "You sure you don't want to go in somewhere in Europe?" And I was like, "No." So kind of did my research. I went out au pairing, so I'd been liaising like back and forth with the family for ages, and then packed my bags and went. And I was there for about 2 years. Made some amazing friends out there, and still keep in touch with the family as well. But I just think I look back and I think that was one of the best, probably best things I ever did. Because in terms of confidence, I mean, to get yourself across the world by yourself,
Yeah.
I think is an achievement in itself, even if I just got there and turned back around. But no, I talk about it all the time. Like my friends are probably sick of me speaking about it, but when I speak about Australia, I literally light up, and I always say it's like a second home to me. And ever since coming back, I mean, I came back and then I pretty much moved to London. So I wasn't living in London before,
Hmm.
but I think I quite like the city life, busy life. And yeah, I think in terms of it was kind of skills I learned in Australia,
Hmm.
kind of applied to my professional and personal life and not look back.
Oh, it's really interesting that that experience was the catalyst for your confidence, and then that's when you also leaned into maybe developing your running, and then building that up into a community, which I find that interesting. But how would you advise somebody who isn't confident? What I don't want to say like what experiences would you recommend for them to develop their confidence? Because I think life has its own challenges for each of us. So it's not a fair question to ask. But maybe what are some of the things that they can do to become a bit more confident?
I think again, like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean everybody needs to go to Australia,
Because
um,
this is not like
because
the suggestion. She's like, book a flight, you'll be confident when you come
book a
back.
flight. No, but I do think in life, like, don't ever be, especially with even starting Go Go Glow. I kind of had the idea for a while, and it was friends that kind of said, "You love running, you want to help people put the two together." But I think don't be afraid to start something. And anybody that's started their own business organization, I'm always such a big follower of and happy to promote and work with, because I just think it can be really scary. But whether it be something you want to start for yourself, for others, I just feel like it sounds kind of cliche, but life is too short, and you should literally live every day to the full. Um, do what you want. Go travel. I think traveling anywhere, not Australia necessarily, but whether it be a holiday, whether it be for a few months, explore another culture, meet new people, go to meetings, go to conferences, try a new sport. It doesn't have to be a sport. I know I'm sporty. Um, try a new activity, even anything. I think sometimes you've just got to get out of your own comfort zone, and that's what I did. And I think that I've not looked back since. Yeah,
I love that. And I think that's amazing advice. And I think a lot of people don't realize like confidence is just literally built in being, well, doing something that you've never done before, not necessarily having to be good at it, but just the
yeah,
fact that you tried is enough. And I think that's something that people should take to heart, because I think a lot of people aren't even confident to take the first step as in attempting to try something new, because maybe they don't want to look silly, or they want to embarrass themselves, or they're just very comfortable being a spectator and they don't really want to just take action and try. And that action paralysis is, as you say, life is too short. You might as well, I think this is my philosophy, you might as well try and fail than fail to try.
exactly. I agree 100%. And I feel like there's always going to be barriers. And I even remember, like, or, it might not turn out the way you want it to in the first place. But I remember even Go Go Go's first run, I think there was like myself and one other person. And I remember thinking, like, oh, this is failure, like I failed. And then I went back and reflected, and I'm just like, you know what, all the run clubs, a lot of the run clubs that I kind of follow and look up to have been around for a few years.
Yeah.
Go Go Glow is only 1 year, so it's like if you work hard, you will see results. I mean, even now, I'm not saying we're not the biggest club, but I feel like the girls that do come are regulars, and we do things that aren't necessarily just running. So I feel like there's friendships there as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, well, that's I have a lot of philosophies, but that's my other one. It's just like you can just start now. You can always make it look good later.
Yeah.
So I think pushing, and also then another one, and I don't know why I'm sharing so many of them, but the one of like embarrassment is the cost of entry to success. Because if you were not embarrassed with only having one person show up, you wouldn't be in a position where you are now, where you've had these bigger events with, like, I think your biggest one, you've had about 20 girls there in one of your collaborations.
Yeah, well, we've had kind of the bigger collaborations have been about 20, but
Yeah.
2 weeks ago it was probably one of my favorite collabs to date,
Yeah.
and it was with an organisation I'd done one with in March, but we actually
Okay.
had 40 girls show up. That was the biggest one we've had, and I was smiling all day. And even now, I'm like, when I think about it, it makes me so
Exactly.
happy. But the
Yeah.
girl that I had teamed up to do it with, because we'd really enjoyed our first one together,
Yeah.
again, it's like about that community. We had girls that had never ran before, that had kind of joined through her community, that are
Mm.
now regulars of my community.
Mm.
And then from doing that event, we were like, oh, we must do another one. Like 20 people's great. So we
Yeah.
doubled it. And then now we're even looking at doing one in October. So it's just like, yeah, I think community is so important as well.
Yeah.
As
That's
in, sorry, support, like supporting other communities. Love it.
It's honestly so important, and I think that it's quite amazing. And as you say, I think just starting is the key, and you're never gonna know what it looks like, whether that's your own like personal physical activity journey or mental journey, or starting a community that helps other people. You just never know what the end result is going to be. Because I can imagine you wouldn't have anticipated that Go Go Glow will be where it is now. And also, before we wrap up, we should also mention that you were on the BBC talking about your running club as well. So tell us about that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
You know what's so funny is it's one thing I didn't even think about to mention today, but it's one of my proudest achievements to date. So
That's
that
why I
was
mean, that's why I mentioned it for
No,
you.
I'm glad you did, because I would have just been like, okay. So it was just before the London Marathon, I actually received a message from BBC Radio London. They'd reached out through email to me, and I'd not seen the message for about an hour. I remember it so clearly. And then I was like, I saw the opportunity, I was invited on to speak about Go Go Glow. And just as I'd gone to respond, they had replied back saying, like, thank you so much for your interest, but unfortunately we filled the spot. And I remember telling my brother, who I'm very close with, and he was like, you need to have your notifications on. Like, this is such a good opportunity. What were you doing? And from that moment, I've never had my notifications off ever again. And he was like, respond anyway. There could be another chance. And I was like, yeah, what have I got to lose? This is, again, the thing, like, in life, what have you got to lose? You can't, until you try, whatever. And I emailed them and just said, thank you so much. I'm really would love, like, if there's another time for me to come on the show, I'd love to come and speak about Go Go Glow. And they got back to me straight away. The ladies were both lovely, and we sorted a date. It was like, I think a month later, so it was after the London Marathon, but I got invited to the BBC radio studio, which is literally, it was kind of amazing. Me and my best friend went, and I was making her kind of be my videographer for the day, but it was right outside where they film like the BBC News and like the One show, so big shows. So we even saw a few celebrities, so I was a bit starstruck, but I was like, no, this is cool. You can do it. So we went into we got escorted into the studio, and upstairs we got like a tour, which was amazing. And then I got to actually be on the radio. It was a 10-minute slot, and I was just asked questions on like why I started the club, kind of why women should get into it, a bit on the London Marathon itself, because that had kind of been the topic that was previously invited on for. Also, I spoke about inclusivity quite a lot, because I think it was important to kind of promote that it was my run club, especially, was for women of all abilities, backgrounds. Um, but yeah, it was just super exciting. And the lady, the radio presenter, had kind of said to me, if you do get into the London Marathon, we'd love to have you back on to talk about it. So now I'm like, oh, well, I want to go back on. So does that mean I have to try and
Do
get
the
into the
London
marathon?
Marathon.
Is that the only way? But yeah, one of the best opportunities. Yeah, still think about it all the time.
No, it was pretty amazing, and that's why I thought it's definitely worth mentioning because it's a very big milestone. Michigan, we are at the end of our podcast episode, and I wonder if there's anything you would want to leave with the guests, whether that's a quote, a message, a story. I don't know. This now's your time to share whatever what you would like to with the audience.
I think for me, I kind of had touched upon it before, but I think I had mentioned about just, it sounds cliche. It's not necessarily a quote, famous quote, but just start. That literally, don't be afraid. That's that's all really. Start.
Sure,
Just one
short
word.
and
Simple but
sweet.
short and sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's really good advice, and I mean, you and I both know how hard it is to start. As I say, I think like we underestimate action paralysis. There are so many people who will think about so many things and not action anything because they're perfectionists or they're worried about what other people think. So just saying start is actually it's that one sentence is so much advice in itself. People just don't realize it. Michigan, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the Lantern podcast. I hope we'll have you again on another episode. Maybe once you've had a bit of time to reflect on those questions I mentioned around, like, some of the deeper aspects when it comes to running, more the internal work as well. I would love to expand on those aspects as well. And yeah, to everyone who's listened up until this far, thank you so much for listening to the Lantern podcast, and we will see you on the next episode.